Maybe it was some kind of genetic mutation, but a village woman accidentally gave birth to a dark-skinned baby. Luckily, her husband was pretty understanding, so he quickly forgave his wife and raised the kid as his own. Fast forward. Marcus was old enough to start school. Even though his parents still loved him dearly, because of his different skin color, he constantly faced cold stares in the village. Not a single kid his age wanted to be his friend. The villagers seemed naturally hostile toward Marcus. Even when he tried to be friendly, they'd insult his mother and walk away in disgust. Marcus just wanted to make a new friend, but got rejected 3 times in a row. When a villager finally approached him, turns out the guy only wanted to steal his bread. So there he was. Marcus arrived at the classroom on an empty stomach. He figured with teachers around at school, he wouldn't get bullied anymore. But the moment the teacher turned around, a classmate immediately chucked a rock at his head. Hearing the commotion, the teacher turned back, looking stern, and demanded, "Who was disrupting the class?" Right then, all the other students pointed straight at Marcus. Without asking any questions, the teacher walked up with a rod and whacked him twice on the head. Marcus knew explaining was pointless, so he just took it silently. After school, he walked home alone. But while passing by a pond, 2 village kids playing soccer called him over. They asked Marcus to join them with sneaky grins. Innocent Marcus didn't think twice. He agreed and immediately dropped his backpack. He thought he'd finally met some nice people. But pretty soon, his excitement turned to disappointment. The 2 villagers never passed the ball to him. They completely ignored him like he was invisible. It wasn't until the ball accidentally landed in the pond that they both looked at Marcus, urging him to go fetch the ball. Looking at the freezing water, Marcus didn't refuse. He saw this as his ticket to join them. But once he retrieved the ball, Marcus was left on the sidelines again, like nothing had happened. He realized he was being excluded again, so he grabbed his backpack to leave. But the next second, a soccer ball smashed hard into the back of his head. Their behavior was getting worse and worse. This time, Marcus had finally had enough. He spun around furiously and rushed straight at the 2 village kids. Then with 1 elbow strike each, he sent them flying into a corner. This was the incredible strength in his genes. As a young evoker, he was naturally stronger than other village kids his age. But this power quickly brought him new trouble. That evening, those kids' parents shamelessly showed up at his door. They unreasonably accused Marcus of hurting their children, even though they knew the other kids started it. His parents paid them off to avoid more trouble for Marcus and decided to settle with money. But this made Marcus feel completely wronged. They ganged up on him and bullied him, yet somehow this became his fault. Marcus got angrier and angrier, and without realizing it, ended up in front of an iron golem. The next second, the iron golem identified him as an enemy and started following Marcus with murderous intent. Chased by the iron golem, Marcus was forced into a forest. However, Marcus's luck today was terrible. He'd just escaped the iron golem when 2 hungry wolves appeared in front of him. These consecutive disasters left Marcus frozen in place, but after he shut his eyes in terror, the expected pain from their bites never came. A masked villager suddenly appeared and took care of the threat. He walked up to Marcus and pulled out a lollipop from his pocket. This was the first time Marcus felt kindness from a stranger, so out of trust in him, Marcus decided to leave with him. Soon, after traveling all night, Marcus was brought to a special structure. This mansion was located in a forest far from the village, and every guard standing watch outside wore the same villager masks. It wasn't until entering the mansion that Marcus discovered the faces beneath their masks had the same skin color as his. Soon, he was brought before a one-eyed man. Obviously, this guy was the boss here. The leader walked up to Marcus, crouched down and gave him a warm hug, then expressed his hope that he'd return to his own race. Next, the leader called over a nearby vindicator, telling him to show Marcus around the entire forest mansion, to let him fully understand his original race. Along the way, everyone Marcus met gave him friendly looks. This was treatment he'd never received in the village. The vindicator first showed him the wheat farming room, then took him to a storage room filled with tons of emeralds. Every chest here was packed full of emeralds. Looking at such enormous wealth, Marcus felt genuinely proud of his race. Finally, he was brought before 2 kids his age. Compared to those village kids, these guys were incredibly nice. They gave Marcus their toys upon first meeting. At this moment, Marcus was completely won over. He decided to stay and join this big family, so the vindicator arranged a spacious bedroom for him to rest for the night. Tomorrow, the leader would personally meet with him. This was the best day Marcus had ever had. The only regret was his parents weren't by his side. Even though everything here was wonderful, he still deeply missed his villager parents. After learning from the Vindicator that Marcus volunteered to stay, the leader began the next phase of his plan to raid the village. His hatred toward the villagers went back 10 years. Back then, as a young boy, he was locked in a cage and became merchandise sold by a player. A blacksmith spent just 4 emeralds to buy him and his companion. Then they were brought back to the village and became the blacksmith's free labor, while the blacksmith himself sat around resting, doing nothing while raking in gold. Once the two filled chests with crafted iron items, the blacksmith ordered them to deliver everything to buyers. However, in the village, they always faced strange looks from villagers. Most villagers refused to show them any respect. After receiving the goods, the buyer actually threw the payment on the ground. However, being disrespected was just a minor issue. What was worse, when the young leader passed by an iron golem, he was quickly locked onto by the golem's detection system. To survive, he had to drop the iron items and flee quickly. When he returned empty-handed to the blacksmith, this made the blacksmith furious, so he stepped forward and elbowed him, and the strike hit his left eye perfectly. From then on, he wore an eye patch, becoming a one-eyed man, to avoid being targeted by iron golems again. He used the skills he'd learned to craft a villager mask from copper. Now, by just wearing this mask, the iron golem couldn't identify him anymore. However, just solved one problem. A new one appeared. That same night, a light-fingered villager snuck into the blacksmith shop. He stole all the blacksmith's emeralds. When the blacksmith discovered it the next day, he immediately took out his anger on them. The blacksmith stubbornly believed these 2 boys must have sticky fingers, so he kicked them out of the village penniless. 10 years flew by. The former one-eyed boy became the current Pillager leader. He spent years building this forest mansion and formed his own organization. But all these years, he'd always feared iron golems. Therefore, he strictly required every member outside to wear a villager mask. And finally, yesterday, he met that legendary being, the evoker who could defeat iron golems. At this moment, after a night's rest, Marcus was brought to a combat room. The leader planned to awaken Marcus's potential here, but Marcus had been assimilated by villagers. His hands were fixed against his chest, unable to lower naturally. Fortunately, the leader had a solution. He had the scientist prepare a special potion in advance, then made Marcus drink it all. The potion quickly took effect. The next second, Marcus's folded arms could separate naturally. After freeing his hands, the leader began further awakening his potential. He told Marcus to knock down the armor stand just with willpower, though this request seemed absurd to Marcus. But trusting the leader, he decided to do it anyway. But after trying, nothing happened at all. The leader thought maybe Marcus's emotions weren't strong enough, so he had his subordinates hang villager portraits on the armor stands, then told Marcus to try a second time. This time, Marcus's anger was completely ignited. He recalled all his past experiences, being scorned by the doctor at birth, later being collectively isolated by his peers. At school, facing all kinds of oppression from classmates, Marcus got angrier and angrier. The next second, he actually unleashed the evoker's signature ability. Then, 3 Vexes were summoned. They quickly rushed to the armor stands and successfully knocked them down. Marcus's performance satisfied the leader greatly. It also made him decide to invade the village tonight. So soon, the Pillager army assembled at the gates. Now, with Marcus on board, the iron golems in the village were no longer a threat. Therefore, they could finally remove their villager masks. And as all the masks were removed, this crusade against the villagers officially began. Massive numbers of pillagers quickly surrounded the entire village. They first dealt with the terrified guard soldiers, then started handling the iron golem ahead. As the village's guardian, under normal circumstances, no amount of pillagers would be a match for it. But this time, the leader arrived with Marcus. As the ability was unleashed, the iron golem was quickly struck down by fangs from the ground. Then 3 Vexes swiftly appeared before it, ending its life in mere seconds. With the village's armed forces completely destroyed, the entire village became a living hell. They spared no one. Regardless of age or gender, the clinic doctor poked his head out at the wrong time to look, and the next second met his end. This thief had just stolen a bunch of emeralds, but in a flash, all that wealth belonged to the pillagers, and this blacksmith who'd once purchased pillagers just stepped out his door. and was personally killed by the leader who'd hunted him down. In an instant, almost all the villagers in the village had been slaughtered. But what Marcus didn't expect was that this included his loving parents too. He witnessed his parents being struck down by axes and swords. This was absolutely unacceptable to him. At this moment, he felt immense guilt. But now it was too late for anything. Marcus immediately decided to make amends through action. He'd make those pillagers who hurt his parents pay the price. Just like that, he instantly took the lives of 2 of his own kind. But this scene was witnessed by the arriving leader, even though Marcus was the hero who defeated the Iron Golem. The crime of attacking his own kind was still unforgivable, so in a flash, Marcus became everyone's target. Facing the mob surrounding him, Marcus had no options, except to somehow fly away. Fortunately, at this moment, 3 Vexes suddenly appeared, and the next second carried their master away from there. Facing Marcus's betrayal, the leader would never let this slide. So after returning to base, he immediately created a wanted poster and posted it in every corner. The high bounty was enough to get every pillager's serious attention. Besides that, due to Marcus's betrayal, the leader had to find a new way to defeat iron golems. Fortunately, at this time, the pillager scientist brought him good news. Turns out these past days, the scientist had been developing an even more powerful creature. He used fallen comrades for this transformation experiment, fusing a horse's body with a pillager's head, then made it drink a fusion potion, finally making appropriate adjustments. Just like that, the first Ravager was born. The leader was very satisfied with the scientist's invention. He saw new hope for defeating iron golems, but before invading the next village, the Ravager needed to consume lots of beef to expand its size. Meanwhile, back at the village, a wandering trader happened to pass by. This was the most desolate scene he'd ever witnessed. The stench of death spread freely through the village. Everywhere he looked, there were fallen villagers. The only living being in the village was probably just Marcus standing guard here. Unlike other villagers, the wandering trader didn't care about Marcus's skin color. He only saw a poor child who'd lost his parents. To let these villagers all rest in peace, he dug numerous pits in an open area, then buried these deceased villagers one by one. After finishing all this, he took Marcus, who had nowhere to go, and left together. Before long, they passed by a riverside,